At the end of the month, with only 50 pounds left, and he needs a fulfilling meal. For each athlete person, needing a fast digesting meal to give him energy, to help him complete the exercise. For each person unsure of what to eat and wanting a side dish with their meal to open their appetite, the world needs a superhero, a real hero who can save them. The world needs potatoes. For those without money, eat a Syrian potato sandwich. For those needing energy at the gym, eat mashed potatoes. For those wanting to open up to food, eat chips. The world has needed a miracle for a long time, and the miracle has taken the form of a human, Potato Man. Dear viewers, welcome to a new episode of the Sam Radar Show. My friends, if God blesses you and you go to Germany and visit Sanssouci Park in Potsdam and visit the Church of Peace there, you will find the graves of a group of kings of Germany. One of the most important kings of Prussia in the 18th century, King Frederick II, known as Frederick the Great, has a grave there.
Hey, Sam, why you don't rush into the topic? We want to know.
I'll tell you. This is the seasoning of the episode. Frederick, my friends, was highly respected by the German people for his military, historical, and religious role, to the extent that Hitler, to preserve his body from destruction during World War II, ordered the coffin to be moved to a safe, secret location, along with another set of treasures.
Okay, Sam, when we go to Germany, we'll visit his grave and bring a bouquet of flowers. Can we go back to potatoes?
This man, my friends, if you ever visit his grave one day, don't bring him flowers.
Then what should I bring? Potatoes?
Indeed, my friends, if you ever visit his grave there, you'll find people placing potatoes on it, and you'll find visitors entering with potatoes, and no one tells them anything. Respectful gentlemen enter, place potatoes on his grave, and leave. So, my friends, to understand this story, we need to go back a bit to the year 1492, specifically in Spain. At that moment, Christopher Columbus was preparing for his first exploratory voyage to the New World, or what would later be known as America. After Columbus's journey, the world would change forever. And here I am, not talking about geography, maps, or the wars that occurred after this discovery, but rather about the exchange that took place between the two worlds. Europe, Africa, and Asia as the Old World, and the Americas as the New World. The New World was rich with discoveries that the Old World had never heard of before. Let me tell you, my friends, there were essential things in European and global cuisine that did not exist in the Old World, and we discovered them in the New World. Take tomatoes, for example. That was a new discovery for the world. Imagine, my friends, without the discovery of America, we would have been eating pizza with orange juice. There was no sauce. Other things like potatoes and tobacco, all of these were things European sailors saw for the first time, and then they transported them to Europe, India, China, and the Middle East, becoming staple ingredients in the lives of people in these regions for centuries and up to now. But that's not all. Europeans also transferred crops to America, new crops that were economically important, and over time they became essential in people's lives there. Like what? Like coffee.
What?
Today, coffee is considered a very important Latin crop, widespread in Brazil and Colombia. Here's the surprise. Coffee was one of the crops Europeans transferred from the Middle East to the Americas. This diverse exchange became known as the Columbian Exchange, named after Columbus. Let me tell you that one of the most important of these exchanges was potatoes. Yes, my friends. Potatoes, or Solanum tubersum scientifically, while the word potatoes is derived from the Spanish word patata. And the origin of the Spanish word dates back to the local languages in Peru, the original home of potatoes, Solanaceae, the nightshade family, which includes eggplants.
Wow, Sam. So potatoes are related to eggplants?
Well, my friends, they are related to each other. They're cousins, and it's a root crop. Its fruits grow underground. The story of potatoes began around 350 million years ago when they descended from a common ancestor with eggplants, taking their current form in South America. The first discovery of wild potatoes was near Lake Titicaca, which I haven't visited before and don't want to. It was about 1,000 kilometers from the Peruvian capital, Lima. Farmers cultivated them in the Andes Mountains around 8,000 years ago, and they were the main food for indigenous communities in the region. The first written historical mention of potatoes was in the memoirs of the Spanish historian Pedro Cieza de Leon in 1553, where he talked about the Inca civilization and the Spanish discoveries there. Pedro described potatoes as one of the main meals for the indigenous population. This, my friend, is the traditional form of potatoes, mashed potatoes. If they had seen French fries, they wouldn't have built a civilization.
We would have just been eating.
Indeed, my friend. The Spaniards started transporting potatoes as part of the new discoveries. From 1570 to 1600, potatoes spread throughout Europe. Initially, my friends, let me tell you that Europeans rejected potatoes, especially because they are a root vegetable. Their fruits grow from seeds underground, in the soil, and these plants were not common in Europe, unlike carrots, for example, which were popular in the Middle East and Asia. Also, my friends, if you look at potatoes, their appearance is not attractive and their colors are not vibrant, not a good-looking plant. They didn't even take the shape of cucumbers, let alone the colors of tomatoes. By the way, my friends, tomatoes became popular as ornamental plants when they reached Europe because of their color. Imagine, my friend, giving someone a bouquet of tomatoes. Imagine, Europe was discriminating against plants. Of course, something like green onions didn't even survive the first round. That's why, my friends, potatoes began to gain a bad reputation, and many rumors spread that they were an evil plant. Rumors used to say that they caused harm, like leprosy, syphilis, premature death, and infertility. They also said that potatoes destroyed the soil they grew in. By the 17th century, over 100 years, potatoes were limited to being animal feed and food for the homeless, but all of this will change. In an article by Dr. Rebecca Earle, a history professor at the University of Warwick, titled How the Humble Potato Became a Fuel for Igniting the Spark of Liberal Capitalism. In the 18th century, European countries began to reconsider the rules of wealth and national power. Any country that wanted to grow had to eliminate two things: famines and malnutrition. And there were famines spreading for centuries in Europe. Therefore, there needed to be a consideration for new dietary systems, systems that could increase population, improve their health and productivity. In his book, published in 1797, titled Observations on the Diet of the Common People, the Scottish physician William Buchan stated that the reason for the nutritional problem was that most people were eating meat, bread, and drinking beer without consuming enough vegetables. This led to diseases like scurvy, a disease caused by a lack of vitamin C, which is found in vegetables, causing general weakness and fatigue. If not treated, its complications could lead to death. These crises, my friend, if not addressed, weaken productivity and destroy the British economy. If we don't have well-nourished people, we won't be able to work, we won't be able to build strong armies, so the nutrition crisis was a real problem. For example, wheat was the main food in Europe, and every 100 grams of flour provided much more calories than 100 grams of vegetables. However, some vegetables, particularly potatoes, had an important advantage.
Is it because they are hot and crispy?
No, not yet, my friend. They hadn't made French fries yet. The advantage of potatoes was that despite the difference in calories, the productivity of the same cultivated area of land with potatoes was approximately 6 times that of wheat. Simply put, the production you get from land with potatoes is 6 times the production you'd get if you planted wheat. Oh, wheat has more calories, but we can produce more potatoes, so ultimately they provide more calories. Also, potatoes have the advantage of being resistant to pests. Additionally, you can eat potatoes in their raw form. You barely need to cook them. But something like wheat needs processing before you can eat it. No one can eat raw wheat. Moreover, storing potatoes is much easier, especially in cold European climates. Furthermore, potatoes have a crucial advantage that the European diet lacks, as I just mentioned, vitamin C. That's why their effectiveness against diseases like scurvy became apparent. For example, sailors would eat potatoes with their skins full of vitamin C, and because they were easy to store on ships, sailors were less susceptible to illness. Buchan encouraged expanding the use of root vegetables like potatoes. The importance of potatoes increased so much that it started to attack the traditional European food represented by bread and meat. The famous economist Adam Smith, who believed in the importance of potatoes as a solution to save the national economy, criticized butcher shops and bakeries in his articles, calling for boycotting them and reducing reliance on them as a food source, advocating for increased reliance on potatoes. But it didn't stop there. European support for potatoes extended beyond intellectuals, doctors, and writers.
Did President Biden get involved?
Well, my friend, the issue turned into direct and indirect government support. King Frederick II. Yes, the one they put potatoes on his grave. This man was convinced of the importance of potatoes, but the Germans rejected them even more than the rest of Europe. So he decided to employ a certain trick. Frederick ordered a piece of his land to be planted with potatoes and placed strict guards around it. He spread rumors about the strength and benefits of potatoes, claiming they were a magical plant. And indeed, the Germans fell for it and began to cultivate potatoes. And when we see the magical plant that King Frederick is planning and guarding, surely it must cure hypertension and diabetes and improve public health. Indeed, the Germans began to cultivate potatoes, and potatoes started to gain widespread popularity. The promotion of potatoes reached all parts of Europe. For example, in Paris, the Tuileries Garden, overlooking the Royal Tuileries Palace and also overlooking the Louvre Museum, was dug up and planted with potatoes. To the extent that Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France, began to wear potato flowers in her hair to show her love for potatoes. In Italy and Spain, the press talked about the benefits of potatoes and published methods of boiling and cooking them, all possible means to promote the potato industry. All of Europe went down the path of teaching people how to grow and eat potatoes. By the 19th century, potatoes were present on almost every European table, becoming a significant part of European culinary culture. Dr. Nathan Nunn, an economics professor at Harvard University, said in a 2011 study published in the Quarterly Journal of Economics, this guy said that between the years 1000 and 1900 AD, the population increased from 300 million to 1.6 billion, but the growth rate was not constant. Most of the actual increase in growth rate occurred in the last 200 years, specifically from 1700 to 1900. Nunn sees that this increase has many reasons, but he says that potatoes and their use as a staple food alone accounted for 25% of the population increase during this period. In the mid-18th century, reliance on potatoes reached its peak in Europe. For example, in Ireland, 80% of their calories were provided by potatoes, with an average consumption of 5.5 kilograms per adult per day.
Oh my goodness. That's a lot.
Not necessarily, dear. The 5 kilograms of potatoes were not only consumed but also used for export, so there was economic activity. But in 1845, Europe faced its worst nightmare when a group of ships arrived from the Americas to the ports of Ireland, laden not only with cargo, but also with a massive potato blight, the Late Blight. The ships that brought potatoes to Ireland for the first time 3 centuries ago today carried the disease, which spread throughout Europe. But the situation in Ireland was much worse than any other region. In the first year, the blight destroyed a third of the crop, and in the second year, 90% of it was destroyed. The situation in Ireland was catastrophic, but what was even more catastrophic was Britain's reaction. At that time, Britain was the wealthiest empire in the world, and Ireland was under its rule. England not only failed to provide significant support to stop this famine, but it continued to collect taxes, rents, and export agricultural products.
We are dying. Bring agricultural supplies.
Let me tell you that this famine caused the death of 1 million people in Ireland, and about another million decided to sell everything they had and migrate in the largest wave of Irish migration to the United States in history. The potato crop failure was one of the main reasons for the explosion of conditions in Europe. Potatoes in Europe were not just a staple food crop or a delicacy for the rich. The absence of potatoes from the European farmer in the 19th century meant that his life was in danger, not just his life, but also his family's and his livestock's. Let me explain why. The idea, my friend, is that potatoes were an easy meal, requiring no expertise in preparation or cooking. One meal could feed the farmer, his family, and his animals. Moreover, they were easy to grow and store. The advantage of potatoes, dear viewer, perhaps not felt now, is that you could hide underground and nothing would happen to them.
And why am I hiding them, Sam?
Keep in mind that we are talking about Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries, where it was very likely that a gang would come and steal your crop. If it wasn't stolen, you would find the tax collector or anyone renting from you coming to take your crop as part of the rent or taxes, leaving you to spend a cold winter without any food. When the famous painter Van Gogh decided to paint a picture depicting the life of European peasants, he chose his famous painting Potato Eaters in 1885, which shows potatoes as a fundamental part of the peasant's life. When the poor classes found that their basic food was no longer available, unrest and protests began in over 50 European countries in 1848, almost simultaneously and without coordination from the peasants. Because Europe at that time was feudal and rejected giving rights to peasants and workers, with some countries still using the serfdom system, similar to slavery for peasants in some countries, potatoes became the last straw that peasants clung to and caused great change in Europe. Consider this: there was a strong uprising in Ireland led by the Irish youth movement, but unfortunately, this uprising failed. Also, the abolition of absolute monarchy in Denmark and the abolition of the serfdom system in Austria, the Hungarian Revolution in 1848, the February Revolution in France, leading to the establishment of the Second French Republic, the March Revolution in Germany, considered the first attempt to unify the German states. All of this forced countries to make reforms to avoid revolutions. Not only that, but potatoes indirectly changed the shape of Europe. For example, there were countries that made reforms to avoid any trouble, like the Netherlands, which decided to make constitutional changes to reduce the effectiveness of the monarchy, and Switzerland, which established a constitution in 1848. Potatoes, my friend, were a major factor in shaping the modern Western world. From the 18th century until the end of World War I, they had a revolutionary impact on the lives of Westerners, not less significant than the impact of railways and cars. Potatoes were the insurance against famines, the fuel for workers in all major achievements, and the food for soldiers in wars, to the extent that they were even used in banking loans. Imagine, my dear, going to take a loan, they ask you for collateral, and you say, "I have a sack of fried potatoes." No loss in the credit department. Let's take potatoes out of history and into the kitchen. Potatoes, my dear, were easy and cheap. They could shine in any country's kitchen. Potatoes spread and adapted to the flavors of various cuisines. Today, potatoes have become the fourth most consumed crop globally after rice, wheat, and corn. You can find them as gratines with bechamel sauce in France, as gamja jorim with fried onions in Korea, or placed under a roast chicken in a baking dish in your home. Of course, not to mention the dish that brought the world together, French fries.
Let me ask you, Sam, the question I want to ask for a while. French fries mean it comes from France?
To be honest, my friend, that's a question that's difficult to answer. Let me tell you that fried potatoes are a subject of debate among many countries. For example, Belgians claim that the dish originated in their kitchens. They have a meal called frietjes, or fried fish fingers. Cut fish into fingers, fry them in animal fat, and eat them. In 1680, during severe winter when the rivers froze, Belgians decided to fry potatoes instead of fish and called them pommes frites, or fried potatoes. At the same time, the French claim that their version of fried potatoes, known worldwide in the 18th century,
I don't understand now, Sam. So, are they French or Belgian?
well, my friend, I want to tell you that the Americans are the ones who caused this confusion. American soldiers, while stationed in southern Belgium during World War I, discovered fried potatoes and liked them very much. Since southern Belgium speaks French, American soldiers brought the dish back to America and called them French fries. And until now, there is a dispute between Belgium and France over who owns the fried potatoes. In 2003, when the U.S. proposed its entry into Iraq, the French government declared its rejection of the American proposal. Did America remain silent? No.
Listen, France, we will change the name of French fries on the Congress menu from French fries to Freedom Fries.
Oh my, Sam, was this revenge? What a foolish nation and a foolish Congress.
Let me tell you, my friend, not only did the US Congress catch on to the fries trend, but so did the doctors. Fries are at the top of the list of forbidden foods on any diet plan, with their high calories and fat content. However, that hasn't stopped them from being number one in the fast food world. In 2021, the global market value of French fries reached over $15 billion, according to Fortune Business Insights, and it's expected to reach $22 billion by 2029. Potatoes, as described by Dr. Rebecca Earle, are so adaptable that their original homeland is no longer known, neither to producers nor to consumers. Potatoes, my friend, the Joker, can withstand any conditions. Just as you can grow them in Siberia, you can also grow them in Saudi Arabia. It's a dish capable of ending wars, revolutions, cultural and historical battles. My friends, despite their different layers, colors, genders, and material, social, and health conditions, all eat potatoes. Our love for potatoes is what unites us. Let's take the metaphor to the end. Let's replace blood with ketchup, war bandages with kitchen towels, and the annoying beep beep sound with the soothing sizzle sizzle. But that's it, my friend. Don't forget to roast the rings that are past and boil the rings that are to come, and make sure to check the sources. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel.